सबके बास तो हम हैं। भारत कैसे इतनी तेजी के साथ बढ़ रहा है?
आज जो दादागिरी करते हैं इसलिए कर रहे हैं कि वो आर्थिक दृष्टि से संपन्न है।
Joining me tonight on the Newshour at 9, world-renowned economist Jeffrey Sachs. Jeffrey Sachs is known not to mince his words. And tonight I want to ask you, how do you look at the 25% penalty tariffs that have been imposed by President Donald Trump on India? Is India-American dosti a thing of the past? Do you think negotiations are going to help anymore? How do you see this relationship and the negotiations going forward?
Well, I think the extra 25% may never materialize. We have a summit meeting of Trump and President Putin coming up shortly. Maybe it's possible there will be some advance on the Ukraine war issue. If so, I think Trump would say that he's suspending the 25% extra tariff. So I think that some of the worst possibly will be renegotiated. But what I've said all along in India is don't count on the U.S. market as being your key, or on a U.S. alliance as being your security. So there's a short-term question. India, yes, should try to negotiate better. I'm not at all against that. But I think that the strategic hopes of India, that it's the U.S.-India partnership that will replace China in America's supply chains, and also that will be the core of India's security arrangements, that I don't believe at all.
So let me ask you, Dr. Sachs, the question tonight is how hypocritical can America be? Because America continues to buy from Russia uranium, fertilizers, raw material for their nuclear plants, but has imposed punitive tariffs on India because we buy Russian oil at cheaper rates. This hypocrisy, does it have legs? Will it continue to walk for long? Or do you think some logic and some sanity will prevail?
Of course, he's not unaware, but this is American arrogance, which is America does what it wants and leaves everyone else in the wake. I've tried to explain this to Indian friends. Don't trust the United States in this. The U.S. does not have a responsible foreign policy. The U.S. does not have a mutual, respectful foreign policy. The U.S. is not an ally of India to any extent. The U.S. may try to use India against China, but that is not to India's advantage, and it is not a strategic relationship. So this is absolutely true. Double standards, this is the nature of American foreign policy. Do what we say, not what we do. And that's a cornerstone of American arrogance, which is that we don't have to abide by international norms and standards.
Do you think there is a serious issue that he faces back home on trade deficits? And that is the reason why America now is going on with this arrogance of tariff terrorism, and the fact that they themselves have their coffers empty puts pressure on Trump?
Last night I went out to dinner, I used my credit card, I paid the restaurant, I ran a trade deficit with the restaurant. They didn't rip me off. I didn't sell any goods or services to the restaurant, by the way. It was an out-and-out bilateral trade deficit. This is basic economics. Now, sometimes you run an overall trade deficit if you add up your deficits and surpluses, because maybe you're borrowing in order to finance a house, or you're borrowing to finance an automotive purchase, or you know that your income is about to rise in the next 2 or 3 years, so you want to raise your living standards right now. Or you're profligate, like the United States is, which says, we'll let our kids pay the debt, not us. And all of those are reasons why you could have an overall trade deficit that has nothing whatsoever to do with the trade policies of your trading counterparts. This is basic economics. The United States does not want to think in these terms. Donald Trump is an economic illiterate. His advisors are, by the way, almost all are lawyers, not even economists, and the couple economists around are pretty bad ones.
Economic illiterate, well, those are not very flattering terms that President Trump is going to like. But let me ask you, these kind of tariffs that he's going around applying on other countries, will this come back to bite America? There will be midterm polls next year. If America is going to impose tariffs, the prices of imported goods will increase and impact the inflation rate back home. Is this really something that he's prepared to understand, or is this just to appease the MAGA lobby that Trump is going through this histrionics, as many are calling it?
The big challenge has come from the fact of the one big beautiful bill, so-called, that was passed last month. That is the budget measure, which put the United States on a course of persistent high deficits for the next decade. So we set in place a very low-saving, high-deficit trajectory. That's in a context in which the financing of that deficit will become more difficult over time, because India, China, other countries do not want to hold so many dollars in their foreign exchange reserves. So they're not just buying up all these treasury bills anymore. And as a result of this, interest rates are high. Our long-term interest rates have reached about 5% rate of return or yield. This is very high. And the result of all of this is that the budget is less stable. The fiscal future is less secure. The dollar will depreciate. All of that means that living standards in the United States will suffer.
What do you think, Jeffrey Sachs, are the options for India and Prime Minister Narendra Modi? The fact that he will give in to America, or the option where he can go back, align himself with Putin, long-term friend Russia has been for India, the Brazilian president also in touch, and meeting with Xi Jinping coming up soon. Where do you think this is going, and are we going to look at a new geopolitical axis once again?
I would have recommended all of these things even without Trump. I'm a believer in the BRICS. I'm a believer in the BRICS remaking the world order for multipolarity and multilateralism. I'm a big believer, by the way, I think it's less controversial now than maybe a couple months ago because of what's happened, but I am a believer in China-India reconciliation and cooperation. I'd like to see the issues that have divided the two giants to be resolved, because I think the gains from close cooperation in making a fairer world would be enormous. You know, it's almost 40% of the world population between the two countries. I'd like to see China support India for a permanent seat on the UN Security Council. I think this would be very important for the world and something that China should do. I'd like to see India and China solve the border issues, which, after all, were made by the British, not by India or China. So it's time for them to be resolved as well. So I see the BRICS as a very constructive force. I do think the BRICS should also intensify work on local currency payments, non-dollar payments for settlements, on establishing strong BRICS financial institutions, and on other forms of cooperation. But this flurry of activity in the last couple of days, well, we can thank Donald Trump. He's the great unifier of the BRICS.
Jeffrey Sachs, now there's a conundrum here. You say you like the BRICS, but then what happens to Quad, where, India is part of that foursome with Japan, Australia, and America. So will BRICS get a leg up? Will Quad die? How are you looking at some of these, so-called groupings and their economic influence in the days to come?
I never liked the Quad. I always thought that India's participation in the Quad was not a good idea. I don't think India should align itself with the United States against China, period. I think India should stand by itself. It's our world's most populous country. It's a great power. Of course, it needs and should seek decent relations with the U.S., but also with China. And I viewed the Quad as a rather crude U.S. attempt to bring India in a subordinate way into the U.S. war on China.
There is also an enormous amount of frustration within India, given the manner Trump's behavior with Pakistan has really played out. Normally, India thought the two countries had agreed on the problems of cross-border terror, as well as Pakistan's proxy war against India, waged by their intelligence agencies and army through non-state actors who are the terrorists. But now the manner in which Field Marshal Asim Munir is being treated like the royalty in the United States, do you really think this is also a dangerous place to be in if at any stage America wanted some decent relations with India?
Trump does not have a strategic view, a long-term view, a knowledge, a history, a patience, and this is why American foreign policy is completely unstable right now. And I'm sure with Pakistan, it'll flip-flop in multiple directions as well. But there is no strategy right now. This, I think, is important to understand. You can't rely on the United States for a strategic relationship because there isn't one. One shouldn't completely overinterpret anything also, because we are seeing improvisation at work by people who don't know very much.
For the moment, what we do have is President Trump and his economic shenanigans coming out through tariffs. How this is going to pan out? Well, countries like India that are feeling the pinch are really waiting and watching. But clearly tumultuous times that we live in. But for actually breaking it down for us so beautifully, thank you very much, like always, Jeffrey Sachs, for joining me on the Newshour tonight.